Hey, what's up? My name is Jose Duncan Jr., and I would like to welcome you to the Unnatural Born Leader podcast. Hey, what's up? Welcome to episode 37 of the Unnatural Born Leader podcast. Super excited to be recording today. Things have been looking positive going into the new year. A few bumps in the road, getting used to a new schedule and getting used to obviously a new position at a new place is not always easy, but I am getting adjusted, and I want to apologize for missing last week's episode. But nevertheless, here we are. Today is January 18th, Martin Luther King's Day, and I'll say a little piece about that. It almost seems like as a national holiday, it doesn't get the recognition it deserves, and at times it's pretty sad to observe that it doesn't get the recognition that it deserves. But I hope a few of us still hold true to the leadership and the courage he showed during his time to really be an inspiration and a leader for the oppressed people. So, shouts out to Martin Luther King Jr. God bless what he was able to do, and he will never be forgotten. He will always be acknowledged as a great leader in our history. So, with that being said, here we are. Finally publishing my first book tomorrow morning. It feels so good to be here, be at this point, and be able to do this the way I wanted to do it. The last few months, 10 months to be exact, from the moment I decided to write this book, there's been a wave of emotions and just things that I wasn't expecting. And I think that's anytime you're doing something creative or something that you've never explored before, a lot of unexpected things will come along and in some ways humble you along that journey. And that's exactly what the book did to me. So everyone keeps asking me, what is the book about? How do you feel? How do you feel that a book is over? When is it coming out? And obviously I give them the details on that, but I always tell them that I'm like super relieved, in a good way, of course. It's not like I can't stand the book anymore, or I don't want to be a part of it. It's just I'm relieved because it's this idea of having a story that you're writing, and you're telling, and you're putting things on paper, and you're expressing yourself, and you're going through all these writing, editing, revising, re-editing, cover work, artwork, photo shoots, all these things to create something that you want to take great pride in. And when it's actually time to share it with the world or just be at a point where you execute, it's a relief. It's a healthy relief. I made it to the finish line of this part of the project. And for someone who doesn't really celebrate great things that happen to me, someone who struggles with celebration or just enjoying moments where I do something positive, it's definitely a relief to be at this point, and I'm very excited, despite what my actions in the past have been towards accomplishments that I've had. This one feels very different. This one feels like an overcoming. No pun intended, but the overcoming self-disappointment while living with high expectations is the subtitle of this book. So that overcoming feeling of actually being in a place where I can publish my first book at the age of 25 feels phenomenal. It pushed me in directions that I thought I wouldn't go. So I'm excited to be releasing it. I hope everyone who buys it is able to get some value out of it. I encourage people to, when they get the book, go through the chapter contents and pick a chapter that speaks to you the most. It doesn't need to be read from front to back. as each chapter tells its own story and its own reflection. So pick a chapter that speaks to you the most and try that chapter out and see what you can get out of it. And I would love any feedback as far as what the book is about or just what you took out of it. So to those who are listening, I really appreciate the continued support in that realm as well. And the book will be available on Amazon January 19th, which is tomorrow. But if you're listening to this on the 19th, the book is available today on Amazon. You can go check that out. The name of the book is The Greatest Fight Within, Overcoming Self-Disappointment While Living with High Expectations by Jose Duncan Jr. And I'm just excited that it's available for everyone. All right, so on that note, today I want to really talk about this idea of manifestation. And I thought it'd be fitting to talk about this after the booklet had been published and I was able to finally publish the book and the project was done. I felt it'd be fitting to talk about just energy flow and law of attraction, if you will. And it's something that I've wanted to talk about on the podcast for a while. I just never felt it was an appropriate time for it because I was still working on something that I manifested a long time ago. So being able to truly work on that again was eye-opening. So here's the thing about law of attraction. We've all, maybe not, but if you listen to this kind of podcast, you probably have heard of law of attraction, right? It's this idea of attracting the things you want out of your life or want out of a situation, and then to be able to give those things the energy so that you can return the energy to yourself. A less complicated way of thinking about it is that the things that you want to happen in your life, you have to put your energy towards. You have to attract those things. You have to openly let people in the universe know that these are things you want. You can't suppress those thoughts or those feelings. You have to be in a position where you attract the right people, attract the right energy, attract the right income, instead of constantly having to go find it or go get it. But just being an energy bubble yourself that can attract those things. So as complicated as it is, we've all have done it. We've all have been able to attract the things we want at some point, whether it's a partner, whether it's the right job, whether it's relationship, whether it's just the kind of energy that we prefer to have around us, we attract. And we do it by just being the best versions of ourselves at that time. So it doesn't need to be complicated, but it's definitely something that we all have done at some point. And I'm just here to shed light on it as it pertains to publishing my book and is being where I am in my life at this point. So I first heard about the law of attraction in college. I had a great defensive coordinator who was very spiritual. We used to have team spiritual times prior to big games or just prior to any game. We had team devotional, we used to call it. It would be a time where maybe after meetings or before meetings, we will all get together and read some type of spiritual or some type of emotional words together, and we would discuss it and gather the message from it. And it was something that was a surprise to all of us as players in college, but we began to appreciate it. I know I began to appreciate those times because the mental preparation of the game of football is so profound compared to the physical preparation, and being able to get to a great spiritual balance before games was essential, whether the outcome was what we wanted to be or not. Being able to have that emotional state under control prior to those games were huge. So my defensive coordinator in college, Pete Rexis, he was speaking about law of attraction one day. He alluded to a book that he was reading, The Law of Attraction, The Secrets of Abraham. It's a popular, really, the basic teachings of Abraham, excuse me. It's a really popular book. You can find that on Amazon as well. A lot of purchases on that book, a lot of reviews on that book, so you can go on there and get a good idea of what the actual book is about. But the law of attraction he was alluding to was about us as players preparing our minds and our energy towards winning. As a struggling team, we had to find a lot of different ways to manifest wins, to just manifest performance at a high level. So when he spoke about law of attraction, he spoke about the importance of having a vision, of having this imagination of what we wanted to happen, of what we wanted to occur during the games, and how important it was to take the necessary small steps in our minds and in our energy for the rest of the night to achieve that vision. He also emphasized the energy necessary to achieve the smaller visions within the bigger vision and how we had to prepare like we already are playing the game mentally. We have to play the game in our minds over and over again before we actually play the game, right? We had to treat the rest of that preparation time as if we were already playing the actual game. And what he meant by some of the things he was talking about is that the way we communicated with each other for the rest of the night had to be like we were competing already. We had to talk football. We had to talk through being successful on the field. The conversations had to match that. We had to eat and drink water. So we, in the mindset of just being prepared to play. Everything we did up until the game day was us attracting the success that we wanted, but we had to do the small steps in between, right? We had to take ownership of the preparation prior to the game, right? We had to attract success. We had to attract making plays. And there's no other way to do it than to talk about it, talk through it, to imagine it, and things like that. So the law of attraction has been something that I have adapted pretty heavily since that moment of learning that and understanding how important it is. And I've discussed before many times that when we are exposed to a saying, a word, or something that someone wise say, we may not be prepared to understand exactly what it means in that moment. But however, throughout as we go throughout life and we are faced with different obstacles or we are put in different environments, we remember those sayings. We remember those things we were taught because we are in a circumstance or in a position where those things make a lot of sense, right? And the example I want to give you is that when I was starting as a fitness professional and I wanted to be good, I wanted to get a lot of clients, build a business within the facility. I wanted to build a bunch of relationships. I wanted to be a performing coach, a performing trainer. So in that moment, I would start to think like, how can I start putting the work in to be a great trainer? I knew I wasn't going to walk in there day one and be killing it, but I knew I had to start putting in some groundwork. And I always wondered, how was I going to do that? And what I remembered was what he said about imagining that you are already what you say you want to be, right? I had to start just thinking like I was already an experienced, seasoned trainer. I had to walk like I knew what I wanted, what I was doing. I had to talk like I was experienced in the field. I had to just manifest the energy that I was going to be a great coach there. And that energy started, building over time. And people would ask, how long you been training? How long you been coaching? I'm like, 2-3 months. They think I've been coaching for years. Although I was playing football for a long time and things like that, the ability to coach is an entirely different ball game. So during that time, I was manifesting great energy. I was manifesting being successful on the fitness floor. And when I started to think like it, imagine myself doing well, coaching clients, and those things started to happen, it was almost like I lived it already. I already experienced it in my mind. I would ask a bunch of questions of my colleagues and try to get them to give me knowledge and information, and I would shadow different trainers just to pick up on their nonverbals, how they work the floor, how they flow through the session. There was so much that I was doing because I knew what the endpoint energy was. And I think a lot of times we can do that the same. And many of us have. Many of you have. Many of you have went into new environments, whether they were intimidating environments, and decided to be a sponge. And you decided to start attracting the energy that you wanted to be successful. But before you can truly attract that energy, you had to embrace what you wanted to attract. You had to become what you wanted to be around, right? And then it's very natural that different people will start to want to be around you and want to spend time with you and want to be in your circle because you're already established that you are coming with a certain level of energy flow, and people who may match it, admire it, whatever there is, wants to be around it. That is pretty much what law of attraction does for people, right? So I know it's a spiritual concept, but it makes perfect sense, right? If you want something and you have a vision for something, you just don't go grab it. You start to think about it. You begin imagining it. You begin asking questions about it. You begin researching it. You begin talking about it more in your conversations. You begin bringing it up more in conversation, right? You begin to just find people who's talking about it. You may find an environment or a community that talks about that thing, that vision, or you may run into people that are also attracted to the same vision as you. And there you go. 3 months down the line, from the moment you had that big vision, 3 months down the line, you're pretty much on your way to mastery. You're on your way to expertise. You're on your way to that vision, and you can feel it. You can feel the energy changing. And it's phenomenal what that feels like. But don't forget that it started when you began to manifest the energy necessary to be at that point. So the law of attraction is super powerful. About over 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to go and speak to my old high school team prior to their championship game. They're a great program. The head coach there does a great job preparing those guys and getting those players ready to play each week. And it's a dynasty over there. So the players definitely were prepared for a championship game, and they ultimately won it. But during my time speaking with the players, I couldn't help but to think of law of attraction. A lot of my speech was about preparing for pressure moments and being able to live those moments prior to the moment even happening. I told them that becoming a champion is a business decision, right? And what I meant by a business decision is that in business, there are strategic steps taken to execute on something important. So when you're playing for a championship, there are also strategic steps taken to achieve that championship game. I told them to behave like they were champions already. When they went to school and walked the halls, they had to walk like they were champions already. They had to talk like it. They had to just eat like it. They had to bring up championship conversations on a train home or whatever. They had to, everything they did had to be in a championship standard of, it had to be a great manifestation from everyone on the team. They had to talk about being successful on the field. They had to just attract the energy. And once all that energy is out there, the universe usually assists you with that. The universe usually throw you signs, right? And then you're finally able to interpret those signs because you have been already attracting the energy. And even as those young players, as 17, 18-year-old players, they understood how important it is to be champions in their mind and exude the confidence and the belief that they were champions already. And ultimately, they became champions, to no surprise, of course. So the law of attraction and energy flow, as you can see, is paramount. It's something that will never go away, whether it's spoken about a lot or it's not. There's many ways to interpret what law of attraction is. You've heard people say birds of a feather flock together, protecting their peace, finding the right vibe or vibing with someone or getting into the right environments. All of that is law of attraction, right? I tell my girlfriend all the time that birds of a feather flock together. It's not a bad thing. It's a term that in the African-American communities growing up, we kind of made that a bad term, saying that kids who were outside doing the wrong thing and hanging out with the wrong people, that if you was around those kids, then you were of their feather and you were also doing the wrong thing and making the wrong choices, right? And while it's true in the negative, it's also extremely true in the positive, right? Birds of a feather flock together. That means that people who are grinding, hustlers, leaders, entrepreneurs, creatives, film, writing, photography, whatever there is, people who do things and love what they do and exude the confidence in which they do it, they will naturally, very naturally attract other people who understand the energy flow and also can bring something to that energy flow, right? And we see it more than ever in 2020 in the new age of technology. All right, you have these Twitter threads of people who all share the same belief or energy about a subject matter, right? And then you have an entirely long thread of people adding to it and adding energy to it and in such a positive way, right? That's law of attraction. That now you have an online community speaking and manifesting the same things. We all share a larger vision, right? You see it everywhere. Rich people hang out with other rich people. It's not a bad thing. You just don't go and find the poorest person to hang out with. All right, and I've been poor and I understand that even now as I am around more environments where people are making a lot of more money and income and things like that and wealth. They can't help but to surround themselves with people who are also wealthy. It's a lot more natural than you think. It's very hard to not hang out with someone who is not. They actually have to go way out of their own comfort zone, community, and spectrum just to find someone. But what's going to happen is if they do find someone that's not wealthy or whatever, in given time, that person spending more and more time around that wealthy person will eventually become wealthy. It's odd how those things happen. it's odd how that person would start to have wealthy thoughts and start to make the right steps to do more things that to acquire wealth, right? Because it's extremely difficult to be in an environment where their energy is towards something and you joining that environment and not exuding the same energy at some point, right? It's either you're there to support and add to the energy or you're there to disrupt. And I tell you this much, it's extremely hard to go and disrupt an energy flow that has so many people supporting it. So I know I went on a rant there about the law of attraction and energy flow, but it's that key to understand how important it is to manifest the things you want. Back in April of 2020, when I decided to write my first book, I imagined what it would be like writing that last chapter. I imagined what it would be like publishing it. I imagined what it would be like having someone read it. I've imagined what it would be like to actually see it online being bought. I imagined a price tag on it. I imagined just a cover, a about me section, just the pages. I felt it, all of it. And then in that moment, I understood the power of imagination, right? And when you're writing a book, if you ever wrote anything to any extent, you understand that as you're writing, the flow of energy is just so overwhelming, and you just kind of just get into a zone where you're just flowing and storytelling, and it's very natural once you get going. But the law of attraction within all of that is that when I began writing, I began to explore more about writing. I began to talk more about writing. I began to tell more people like I'm writing a book or I just started writing a book. I started to follow more authors on social media. I started to read more, really, and not only reading for the enjoyment of reading, but really reading text and being mindful of how the author put the words together. I began to like understand why an author flowed through a story the way they did. I understood why an author designed their book the way they did. I started to understand more. And I started to attract more and more energy from different people who are also creative and getting encouragement from them and them also saying, hey, I'm thinking about writing a book. Like, and that constant community support was what I was able to continue to write my book. With the addition of obviously my sister, my girlfriend, and my close family, the support was endless. So I say that to tell you that when you're starting out something, of course it's important to have your knowledge or have your information ready, but it's as important to allow those feelings of success within that project consume you prior to even beginning. Feel yourself being successful. And then once you feel it and you imagine it, start with the very small step that's necessary to begin that success. And only you can know what that step is. Only you can lead yourself in that way. You can have the greatest team, but only you can understand you completely. And I hope that makes sense when we're talking about manifestation. Because manifestation, all it is energy. And when and where you choose to flow that energy to is completely under your control. No one can control the energy you flow with, right? With all the negative thoughts we have in a day, we can choose to go opposite of that with our energy. And that's what's so fascinating about energy flow, that we can choose which way it's going. But no one's perfect. The law of attraction isn't perfect. You can definitely attract negativity in your life by being negative. Everything that is a solution has a problem within it. So there's always going to be room for problem solving within law of attraction, but we have to continue to monitor and protect our energy flow. And we must respect that the energy we flow into the universe, we must respect that we may receive that same energy, whether it's good or bad, and accept that, and decide to do better, of course. So that's it, guys. That's my snippet of law of attraction and energy flow. I hope you guys took something out of that episode. I always speak with my passion. I always speak open and honest, and I just let it flow. I don't try to be perfect with it. I don't try to be too articulate. I try to just tell you what's on my heart when it comes to some of these subjects as leaders and as self-developing individuals, which we all are. So please check out my book. I think there's great value in there for everyone, whether it's the first or the last chapter. I think there's great value in there for everyone in some context. So please check out my book on Amazon, The Greatest Fight Within, Overcoming Self-Disappointment While Living with High Expectations. I really work extremely hard on it, so I really appreciate you guys could check it out. And if it's not for you, maybe it's for someone you know. I support that as well. So thank you for the continued support, and I hope you guys enjoy the book. I'll be talking more about it as we go throughout the weeks. I'm also thinking about doing a small segment on it called Inside the Chapters. So I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for what's to come, and I thank you guys for being continued supporters of the podcast. Please remember to leave a review down below. Whether it's a 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, it doesn't matter what the review is. As long as we're growing, as long as that I'm able to continue to give value, I don't mind what the reviews may be. I just ask that you continue to review and share the podcast with those who you think may need it. Until we speak again, remember that positivity is contagious and attitude is everything. Have a great one.